Hello, gentlemen. Ken, Brad.
Hey, it's good to see you guys.
Hey, guys.
Welcome back to another episode of Agency Exposed.
Yes,
sir.
Welcome to the wood table,
What table?
the silver table.
We are around the wooden table. And just for anyone who is watching or listening, and just want to let you know we do have a YouTube channel now. Mm-hmm. And Ken and your team is doing a great job of getting those up there and edited, and they look great.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to make the look of them better, right? We need to shoot better and that kind of stuff. But Brad's face looks so good no matter what that I think it's just easy.
Thank you so much. I've
I've
been working on it.
Yeah. We got a nice profile of Brad in these
Oh, really?
shots. Yeah, look, see? So we're getting like this nice, like really,
Yeah,
We're just looking at you,
I'm
kid.
looking at you guys, so maybe I get the.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Your stoic profile.
I'm stoic.
So we're going to hopefully be making some upgrades to all that stuff, but I think just getting it on there is good. And so go watch us on YouTube if you're wondering how
Just search Agency Exposed Podcast and you can find
Exposed Podcast, right?
Yeah.
So
I
Brad,
was just looking at your T-shirt again, and I'm wondering 2021. What's the?
Winter's my season.
Oh yeah, that's right. Do you got T-shirts for that?
There's a COVID delay.
Oh yeah. Well, I bet you that on the street that probably gets a lot of questions. Like that one, mindset matters. I think most people get, but the winter is my season. People will probably ask you questions.
I can't wait for it.
Yeah.
I love the phrase.
Like what?
No.
Narnia.
Okay, so there's gonna be one that's super plain, and then there's one that's like more it's kind of subtle mountains and some I guess like forest type.
Now look,
looking.
The
things.
people listening can they actually get that T-shirt?
Yes, as soon as it's out, we're gonna let everyone know, and they can buy it at our store.metakick.com, and you can buy previous year's T-shirts right now, and amazing hoodies at store.metakick.com.
we need to come up with some clever things for Agency Exposed and sell some T-shirts.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Maybe we can get some.
Got a few phrases that we can use.
I've got a few phrases. Trust me.
Why am I in business? Question mark.
What am I doing here? A daily thing? No.
We've talked about that actually. We're probably gonna have some merch and some of those kind of things pretty soon here too. So
cool.
Yeah,
this has been a fun ride so far. We're in episode like number
63, maybe 64. I can't. Wow. I don't know which one this will be.
What are we going to do for 100 when we hit there? Some kind of celebration?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have some extra coffee that day.
Yeah, people tell me I'm not the best at celebrating stuff. I'm just like,
you keep
great,
moving.
Let's move on.
Yeah, me too. I need to stop and celebrate.
But we should celebrate. Bob, you're 7, so you can put the.
I can come up with something fun.
Good.
We can do. Maybe what'd be fun is doing it from a really fun location.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Where would you guys like to? What's on your top list to do? Like local or maybe not local?
Ooh, I mean, are we allowed to travel these days?
Yeah, let's.
Well, that's a ways away. I mean, that's like 40 something.
Oh man,
like almost 38 episodes.
We'll find something good.
Yeah,
we'll do it.
Bob will figure
something
out.
How about we do it in front of the Facebook welcome sign?
We're gonna do it remote outside
because we've been talking about Facebook for a long time.
That would be fun.
Thumbs down. Yeah.
And we're going to video it.
Of course.
Of course. It's good. So on to the topic, as I think in the background during this whole time about ideas to do this thing. So, we've talked a lot about mindset lately, which has been great. And one of the things that we do as agency owners and workers and all that good stuff, and Brad, you brought up this topic, is what do you do, or maybe what is the process is a better question, when clients hire you, they say, we need help with our brand, we need help with our marketing, but we don't have a lot of answers, i.e., like we don't know what our brand should be. We don't know how to reach our audience. We don't even have any of the data, any of the research. Where do you even start with that? Is there best practices? So let's try to unpack that today.
Yeah.
So Brad, you brought it up.
Yeah.
I'll let you lead.
Yeah. There's clients who really understand who they are, and there's clients who don't. I find that a lot. And
how would you I mean, most of them don't, or most of them do, in your opinion?
A lot of times we'll work with entrepreneurs, and they think, hey, we just build something to fit a need, or there's a pocket that we think we can sell a product, and let's just get it on its feet and sell it. And a lot of times what I find out is that when you start looking at a product, there's literally no unique selling point or the unique proposition that they have on that product. So they're building a product that already somewhat exists in the marketplace. In fact, there's competitors and there's big giants, big whales that actually run, and they want to compete with the whales. And it's, and they think that they're going to somehow enter into the marketplace with a product and instantly create market share for some reason. Yet they don't really have a unique selling proposition to their product that we could identify. Those are the challenging times. Like those are like, okay, how do we sell this thing? So, we've often talked about, as a business or a product or a service, you can only be three things. I think maybe it was you. I don't know who coined it.
I stole it from someone.
Ken. Yeah, Ken stole it, and
I heard it somewhere.
It's always stuck with me, and I remember all the time. And you're either the cheapest, the best, or the only. And typically, what we find is there's a lot of our clients are not the only. They are either the cheapest or the best. So they certainly say, well, we don't want to be cheap because we're not trying to have a cheap product, so we want to be the best. I'm like, well, are you prepared to actually be the best? Because that's not going to happen overnight.
And you can't do that with $2,000.
No, you can't. And that's a big battle to be the best. Like you have to be prepared to go to war.
And you have to be special.
Very special.
It's honestly, right? You can't be the same and just spend money.
So the idea is when we go in there, typically we have processes, and I'm kind of interested to hear what your process is. How do you guys identify when you guys are looking, if you have as a client that comes to you and says, listen, we need to do this. We need to run a campaign. We need to sell products. We need to do this e-com solution. How do you guys identify what is the right strategy for them and their product? And what are the kind of types of clients that you find that you run against where you're like, man, they don't really know this. And, some clients, they know their unique value proposition. They've been doing it for a while. They have a lot of intellectual property. So they have patents that protect them, and they have unique selling propositions.
But I find that that's rarer and rarer.
But that's hard. It's
getting
rare.
more rare these days. Because, and why do you think that is? I mean, I think it's become easy to create products, which is a good thing, right? But like it's been easier. I mean, easier than 50 years ago. Now you can create a digital product by knowing how to code and having some creativity, and you can create any other physical product by sourcing and talking to manufacturers and those kind of things. And that's all good. Those are all good things, but I think it creates. We've talked about this in several episodes, just like it is in marketing. Like as things get more and more, I don't know what the word you use, Bob, is, but I'm gonna say democratized. Like it's easier to do.
Knowledge,
it becomes
dispersed.
Commoditized, and then it loses value to some extent, and then it kind of at some point it recycles.
Somebody creates or learns some new secret knowledge before.
And so it's always interesting to apply that to different situations. But I feel like maybe I think we're in that cycle, and in just how we create products these days.
Sure.
And we're in e-commerce, and so we see it all the time. I mean, I think a lot more now than before. Before, when you had to invest a lot in and you had to figure things out, and it was harder, let's say 50 years ago, you kind of had to know your unique value proposition and all those kind of things kind of going into it, and your market, and you had to do serious market research and that kind of stuff. These days, I think it's easier to create a product that you think is going to be cool for some reason. No matter who you are, you may be really experienced doing something, or you may not, and it may start selling, and then you may find yourself, with a good business, but you're not sure exactly why it is. And we see that a lot. And again, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, but I think we have to be aware of it, because, if you don't, that you're not, if you're in that position, I always find that you have to reverse engineer the business. Otherwise, you have the risk of being a trend. A fad, not a trend. And that's a little bit what you're talking about, no?
I think, too, it goes back to one of the things we talked about a few episodes back, and during COVID, how many businesses kind of were able to maneuver and adapt. And what those businesses had in common is they really knew at the core why they were doing like not the what or the how, but the why they existed. Yes. And so you had businesses who were able to transform and within a matter of weeks become a provider and distributor of PPE equipment, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas they were maybe an ad specialties company before, which an ad specialties company, if that's all you do, that's your what. But the why was, and I think we read through some of these, so you can go back and listen, but really understand, like, is your mission to bring the highest quality service to businesses of whatever they need, and to be able to source and provide that at the best price and through the best logistics. If you understand that's what you do, the products don't matter.
It's just how you get there.
So how do you, if you're working with a customer and they don't really know that top level why, do you sit down with them and unpack the real why and create? How do you put it down in writing in a way that is like a statement that they can hold on to? Because I'll find that a lot of this, the why is actually the culture of the company. Right. And so if like a C-level person or CEO defines their why and then wants to put it up on the walls so their employees see it and stuff, then there's more alignment to that why, and everyone understands. So when there is a pivot, I believe that if you can share that internally as an internal culture to the company, that when there is a pivot, people are not going to complain like, oh my gosh, what's going on now? We've got a new product we're offering. I don't know why we're doing this. They actually look at the why and go, oh, that's why we're doing this, because this is who we are as a company.
It's got to be the top down.
So do you help companies? Like I do that. I help companies actually understand their why. And sometimes they don't want to really, to be honest with you. They just want to like focus on the product. And I'm like, no, let's back up about 10,000 feet and really look at your company as a whole. Why do you exist? I actually asked people, I said, why do you exist? And they say, oh, to make money.
Yeah, no,
so everyone's like, why do you exist? To make money. I'm like, well, that's a waste of time.
It really is the worst answer.
I mean, the most, the US dollar has zero value. I mean, literally it's a liability. So you have to have a better reason to exist on this earth besides just make money.
Yeah. Because, I mean, that may be some of the pain that got you into the business.
Yeah. I mean, we all got to make money. Yeah, that's a given, but it's not the why, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's finding the why and getting into the human spirit of things and trying to understand the real purpose of a company, because a company without purpose,
well, exactly,
it's just people going into work.
I actually believe that all the companies that you look at that trend down, that lose steam, that go out of business, that lose their way, I think you can trace back to them losing their why.
Yeah.
Or losing sight of it.
There's several ways to do that. At 5x5, we're a Story Brand certified agency, and Story Brand is a great tool for doing exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
What Donald Miller created as an author for many years, he realized, this is a universal principle that can be applied to business, meaning if you think of Star Wars, if you think of any epic story, Lord of the Rings, whatever, there's always a central figure. There's Luke, and that central figure goes through some curiosity, discomfort, a crisis, whatever it may be. I want to get out of here. I want to leave this planet. There's more for me. There's something missing. And he meets a guide, and that guide could be Gandalf. It could be Obi-Wan Kenobi. It could be whatever. And the guide says, okay, now you're ready to learn, and I'm going to show you a better way. And then there's an antagonist, it could be Sauron, it could be Darth Vader, whatever it may be. Westerns, they all have the same thing. And this, the central figure has to learn, and then he has to face the antagonist, the evil, whoever it may be. They go through some kind of battle. Luke has a dark night of the soul. Oh my gosh, he goes to the cave. Am I Darth Vader? Is Darth Vader my father? Am I one and the same? And then he comes through transformed, and he's the hero, right?
Yeah.
So that storyline is universal from the beginning of time. And it's universal in our psyche. And if you can sit down with the business and say, okay, who's the hero here? Well, you are as the business. What problem are you going to solve? What is the call that you have to solve? Who's the guide that comes along? Maybe you as the agency that's going to come along and help show them. But really, who's the antagonist? What's the problem that you're solving for your customers? And if you can kind of start to think through those processes, and that's just one, and then you can actually write what they call a brand script. It's like you start to fill in those characters and you get them thinking on those levels of, okay, you're the hero. What problem are you solving? Who's the antagonist?
Yeah.
Is it bad weather?
Is it cancer? If you're dealing with a healthcare customer, like
exactly,
it might not be an actual person. It might be a thing in your customer's life that is the antagonist.
So there's a lot of great tools to do this, but if you can get them thinking on that level, it really helps to frame it. But it has to come from the top down.
You know, I do this thing with I do a 3-day workshop with a lot of clients, and it's a lot to take in. But I bring in a lot of C-level people, and we all sit down, and I actually have them write out what is, in one sentence, what is the sole purpose why your business or your brand exists, and they will write it out, and then secretly they all write it out separately. We'll put them on the board and read it, and you don't understand how many times I find that all these C-level people, their whys are completely different. They've never actually sat down together in a room, and they don't share the same goals. Their whys are completely different. And so it's part of the process, I think, is not just pulling out from them, it's getting them aligned to really what the true purpose is, so that when you walk out of the room with your customer, everyone can agree that is who we are. Because I can't make a company a certain way. I could dream it up and I could write it for them and make something really cool for them. But if it's not them, they're not going to adhere to it. They have to own it. And that's one thing that I learned, is that you got to get every one of your clients, especially with an organization, all on the same page. Because if they're not on the same page, they just don't care about it.
What you guys are talking about is something that is not taught and is usually learned the hard way, which is you have to kind of be a coach to your clients, and like, you can't do the work for them. And I think a lot of times in the agency world, especially maybe younger, earlier on people, because clients will say, I need you to figure this out for me. And like, it's impossible. It's actually not possible. Like, it can only come from within.
It's a culture thing.
So you have to figure out. So I think developing the awareness of this idea that certain things a client can only do. Like, if you have somebody who comes to you and is like, hey, I don't want to do any work, you need to do everything for me, and I'll write you a big check, I would turn that down or really highly question that, because they, certain things you have to do. I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, I can't do your push-ups for you, or something like that. I don't know if that was the quote, but it's this idea.
Sure, that wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'm not going to try that accent. But there are certain things that only
I can't do those push-ups for you.
Yes, it's excellent.
Yeah.
There's certain things that only you can do, right? Even if you don't want to do them, then you really won't succeed. And it doesn't matter who you are. You might be the CEO of the company, you might be a billionaire founder, but like, certain things can only come from within. I think you can band-aid it a little bit sometimes with money and effort, but at the end of the day, certain things can only come within. And so how do you do that? And what you guys are both talking about is are really good tools to help do that. Yeah. I'm very aware of StoryBrand. I love that. And we work with consumer brands, and so we help them identify that storyline a lot of times. And honestly, like, you can apply it in different levels, but as a brand, and I would even say we apply it for ourselves, and I think agencies should apply this to themselves as well. But as a brand, you put your customer, make your customer the hero.
That's right.
And you're the guide, and figure out how you guide them through their journey and where they want to be. Like, those are some things. But those tools, we also, so another thing we've been doing lately, which I've found a lot of success with, was we launched a product, which is, it's like an assisted product. And so really what it is it's a pretty big, kind of questionnaire more than anything else. And it walks them through, we call it brand readiness. And so are you, a lot of times people come to us and they're like, hey, we want to start selling, or, we're already selling, we want to scale. And it's like, have we identified the ingredients that are needed to do that? Like, when we go to market, to write ads, like, what are we doing? Like, what are we writing ads about? What are the pain points and all these sort of basic elements? And so we created this product. It's kind of like an off the shelf plus consulting, but they go through this process. We've seen a lot of success for it, and it prompts them, like they've got all these questions, about why they exist in their story and their unique selling points, and some of these other things go through there, and then we dig pretty deep into it, and then we go back and forth. We assess it. We give them feedback on all the answers. We ask them more questions, and then what they come out with is more than anything clarity on why they exist. And once you have those things, then you can actually start writing ads, and you can start writing marketing messaging. You can start saying, the reason I'm different than this competitor is for this reason, and so here's my unique side, and you can really start to become the only one. And I think the way you become the only one in any business, the easiest way is by focusing on your purpose. Like, your purpose can be unique even if your product is the same.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, you look at like something like Tom's shoes or something, right? I mean,
right.
He sold a shoe that
it's a shoe.
Maybe it wasn't the best quality. It's a shoe, right? How many years have they been making shoes?
Yeah.
And so, or even razors, but he came up with a different way to sell in a certain way to position it,
right,
of giving back. And so he had a mission, he had a goal. And I think that was his unique selling proposition. Your unique selling proposition, a lot of times we'll sit down with clients and we have this thing that we do. We grid out your unique selling propositions. We have this, and then on another bucket we put antes, which is an ante is what you're bringing to the table that may not be unique, but it's necessary. The customer is going to want it in the product, but it may not be unique. And so we start breaking those down. We find that most customers, they start putting unique value propositions in the unique value proposition bin, but they're not actually unique value props. Right. So what happens is we find that we start moving things over into the antes because it's like made in the United States, like made in the United States. No, that's not a unique value prop. There's millions of companies that are made in the United States. That's something that your customer will like, but it's not a unique selling proposition. So we have to make that up. And sometimes that can be a position, the way you market your product. That sometimes that can be the way packaging, maybe something unique. Maybe they sell a product that goes in the container, but maybe that container has a brand language or something unique about it, the way it functions that allows them to consume that product better. I mean, if you're going to come out with a new soda, maybe there's a unique packaging that's never been created before for soda that helps somebody put in their backpack better or something. Right. There's always some innovation you can add to it.
To the product and also to just the brand that you're wrapping around it.
Correct.
To,
and then, but
value adds.
But everything has to serve the why. And then everything has to start serving your actual customer and understanding your customers, the end customer, their pain points, which is really kind of part of the antagonist. A lot of businesses, like when we go through there, we identify antagonists, not just for our customer, but for their customers too. So if the antagonist is time, right? It takes up too much time and their product saves time. Well, that's, we're building, that's a protagonist. So we're saving somebody time. That's what the value they're getting. They're getting their time back. Or something like that. So we identify those things, and when we do that, what it does is it not only helps us to identify the challenges and the need that the product meets, but it also helps us to understand the persona of our customer. So we start to get into the customer itself and say, okay, who's our ideal customer? What are their pain points? Who are they in life? Do they have kids? Right. What are their struggles? And we really get deeper into understanding the human spirit and the human life of what your product really does solve for that person. It's like, well, I sell a skincare product, and so what we offer is nice looking skin. And I'm like, that's bull. You don't offer nice looking skin. Yeah. This person who's putting that on has so much baggage from years of feeling not worthy, not loved, and not pretty. Right. And so what you're doing is actually you're filling a void from many, many, many years, like we all do, right? So we're filling different needs and emotional needs that we have to understand. And so sometimes clients don't like to go that deep.
Right.
They like to stay on the surface.
Also, I find that, I don't know how to put this, but it's almost, they're almost embarrassed to go that deep. Like, people don't like, it's almost like sharing what's inside of them. Yeah. And with their even coworkers around and with somebody else, and so I almost feel like people don't even.
They don't like
they're
to
kind of
go,
scared of this process.
Yeah, they just want to keep it top level business. It's about numbers. It's about dollars.
Especially when you have a certain work persona. So you might be dealing with someone or whatever that has a certain work persona. Like this takes some soul searching.
It does.
And it's almost like,
it's like counseling.
Yeah. And I've written about this a little bit, but like you have to make a business case for why it's worth soul searching. Because a lot of people put it in the category, I would say, of, oh yeah, it's really nice to have, that fluffy purpose of Tom's shoes, like, warm kind of thing, but it's not, it doesn't pay the bills or whatever, it makes people feel good, but it doesn't pay the bills. And I think you have to build a business case to say, hey, it's worth figuring out all this emotional stuff because this is actually how you market it.
Yeah,
it's actually why people buy it.
Until dogs start buying products, we're always going to market to humans.
Yeah, I think so.
The human spirit is so complex, right? Our emotions are so complex, and the reason why we buy products and the reason why we use them is so complex. And so I think you have to get down there a little bit with your client. And,
motion drives motion.
It's right.
Yeah, and I think more and more today in 2021, and it's going to continue, is as channels become more segmented, that's going to become even more and more important to understand, because when the channels are few, you can have broad messages to broad people, and the public expects that. Right. It's like back in the day, if you wanted a toaster, the only way you would know or what to buy is you had 3 or 4 channels saying, this brand of toaster, Acme toaster. How did Acme toaster get into the mind of housewives in the 50s all over the country? I just made that brand up. I don't know if it's real. Well, they heard Acme toasters because Acme toasters had the money to advertise on those few channels, right? So the psychology wasn't as deep because your choices were minimal. But now that we have channels with millions of choices, i.e.,
I think
that
Facebook goes back to the
streaming
to
or
the 3 business
else.
things,
right?
Because like that back then you were the only one. So it's kind of like you solve a need. It doesn't matter why, that you're the only one that solves that need. People buy it. As soon as there's 2 people and that there's 2 brands, now you actually have to dig into the deeper need, which is probably emotional.
And that's where you have the Don Draper. If you watch Mad Men, then those who understood what we're talking about, they really drove to the top. And what's made those ad agencies so famous was they're like, oh, now there's 3 brands of toasters. Maybe we're not selling toasters. We're selling, whatever it may be, right? And they do the whole pitch.
Yeah.
And well, now multiply that 1 billion times. And so that's what we have to deal with on the e-commerce side, is just those micro channels.
Right.
It's
you have
really
all these
interesting.
different products, and anyone can rip you off tomorrow too.
Yeah.
And really, I find that IP and all that kind of stuff doesn't really protect you that much because there's just so many ways around it, right?
Yeah.
The best way to do it is I think the hardest thing to rip off is a brand.
Yes. Once you have brand equity, it's really hard, but that doesn't come with. Most people say, I want to gain brand equity. I'm like, most companies who have brand equity have actually put equity in their brand. Billions and billions of dollars of equity. Do you have billions of dollars sitting on the sidelines? Because you can build a brand equity. It costs money to do that. It doesn't, or a lot of time. Yeah. It's like 20 years.
What people don't realize is that brand equity is not you sold a bunch of products and people are using it and you're making money. Brand equity means your product is embedded into the culture of society, which means that's a whole different thing, right?
Completely.
Like Apple, Coke. I'm going to go have a Coke. What does that mean? It can mean any type of soda. Give me a Kleenex. That just means a tissue.
Yes.
That's brand equity, right?
Absolutely.
How do you guys do this?
Just Google it.
Yeah, right. I mean, it can be hard. I mean, I think there's a lot of these things have lost their meaning in the world, and so it can be hard to re-educate around it because there's this idea that I think it's obviously incorrect, but that business is easy.
Yeah, I often find that clients come in and say, I want to create a new search engine, and I'm going to compete with Google, right? And I'm like, okay, what's your unique selling proposition?
How many billions of dollars do you have in the
I don't
bank?
know. It's very similar. you search and you find things just like Google. It's exactly like Google.
Exactly.
And they're like, okay, how much money do you have?
I want to build the alternative to Facebook.
You know? And so,
Bob, we heard a lot of that.
I wish
10
I had
years ago.
$1 every time.
yeah, exactly. But
No,
for,
this is better.
But it's for this niche audience.
It's Faithbook.
Yeah, it's faith or it's
I want-
whatever.
It's for this niche audience. I want to build this little social
Yeah, it's for monks.
social media. And so how do you look at them and you go, okay. What's your unique selling proposition?
So what do you guys use? I have something I wanted to share. When you get down to the where the rubber hits the road, client says, "Okay, I'm ready to like dig in," and we call it an immersion. You guys may call it something else, but they've signed off and they're like, "Okay, let's go deep. Let's start pulling this out." I know you have a 3-day process. Do you guys have anything like that?
We have it's this product, this brand Readiness product.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm going to tell a little story here. And so we have a client that we've worked with, and we did this process a couple days actually, and it was a lot of labor. You could tell it was hard pulling things out of them. They just never thought this way before, the way our process works. And at the end of the day, there literally was no unique selling propositions. And knowing that, and we're like, okay, well, the only thing we can do then is to rely on, they have some pretty good distribution channels and stuff, and rely on your past. You've worked with some great clients in the past, and you have some doors that are open. So the only thing that we could rely on is they didn't want to be the cheapest, but they wanted to be really kind of the best in some ways. And so we actually sat and we said, well, we're going to put a lot of time into the brand and make sure at least the brand is at the point of that, there's no excuses for the brand. So we did that, and then they launched a product and they didn't have the success. In fact, after we talked to them, they said, well, there's no difference between us and somebody else. There's 1,000 products like ours out there. So it's really hard to get traction on it. It was harder for them to sell than they thought it would be, because they for some reason thought just if they created a great brand, a great logo, the great look of the product, all that stuff, that somehow that was going to sell. And it didn't work as well. But it literally started like from the meetings. I'm sitting there telling them, you have 0 unique value propositions, and I can't even think of one. And so, and that was like 6 months later. The writing was already on the wall. Now, could have sold? Yeah, they could have had some unique distribution that, relationships. Those relationships sometimes are really key, obviously.
Right.
And they could have done, could have sold that way, but it's just really difficult. And so that's a true story. And what do you do with that as an agency? How do you help a client who literally can't see the writing on the wall?
So what happened?
Well, they're not selling as well, and now they've spent a lot of time and energy and money into something that looks nice but is hard to sell. So they have to pivot at some level, right? They're going to have to come up with some unique way to sell the product. And not that they can't do that, not that they will do that. The game's not over by any means, but it's just harder unless you really have a strong strategy for your product of what makes it unique. I've got another client that wants to sell a product, and I've shown him, there's 10 of them on Amazon right now that are exactly the same.
Right.
What's going to make you, why do you think you're going to sell more than them? They already got a jump start on you, and there's nothing unique about your product that is different than what the 10 are on Amazon.
Right.
I would always kind of chuckle and probably made a few people mad through the years. I would inevitably, and I'm sure you guys have had this, you get somebody, a friend or an acquaintance in the neighborhood, and and they try to hit you up for some MLM product, the latest MLM. And this was big in the 90s and early 2000s, and I guess it still is, but
It's coming back.
yeah, it's just kind of like, hey, Bob, I want to show you something. Oh, okay, I'll listen. And they go through
really
this
great
whole,
water filter.
they'll go through this whole thing of, some cheese that's good for you, or a water filter, or some skincare product. And I'll listen. I'm like, I could go to Whole Foods and get that exact same oil, essential oil, for like $3 a bottle. Why would I want to go join your MLM? Oh, but it's not the same. No, it's really the same. It's just as good.
Unless you can prove it.
So tell me, why would I spend $20 when I can go get it for $3? And they just kind of stare at you and go, well, this is better. But like you said, Brad, there's really no like, I get it. There's the whole MLM. It's just paying people out in the pyramid is why it's jacked up. But
unequipped salespeople.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people don't really think on that level. They don't start putting those dots together, and then you realize, oh, it's a story that we have to tell. We have to be different and differentiate ourselves, because there's products out there right now that are selling like crazy, but they are literally the same product.
Yeah.
I mean, you know this with one of your clients with
I mean, we sell, I mean, one of our long-standing brands is a silicon ring brand. They're one of the top ones. Groove Life, they're over here in Spring Hill, actually. They're amazing. And Peter will tell you,
2 years almost. This thing is awesome.
Yeah. So the product actually is better because they spend more money on it. But the truth is perception is it's the same as every other ring. And I can get a ring for, I can get 3 rings for $5 on Amazon. And so how do you, and that's another aspect of this is like, okay, the facts and the perception have to, like, if they don't line up, then it doesn't matter what the facts are. Like, you may be better, but if you can't make someone think that at the first go. But anyway, like, we dug in, built the brand. They've got a very unique story and a unique customer, and they do have unique value propositions. And so that came out through that brand story. But people only listen because of the story. Like, people don't care about it at the beginning. So if you start with just tactical, this is better for these reasons, and this will make your finger whatever, like that only goes so far. Anyway, the point is, we sell rings for upwards of $40, and on Amazon you can get 3 rings for, $5, or I don't even know what, but like a lot of little crappy silicone rings. Now, they are better, way better. They have a lifetime guarantee, all this kind of stuff. But like, perception,
people are buying the story.
They're buying the story. Yeah.
What I always tell customers is that your brand is basically a promise. That's all. It's just a promise. Right. And if you want us to create that promise, then you better make sure that when they get the product, that promise is realized. Meaning that, yes, exactly what we promised them, the customer received, and they're happy with it, because you've met the promise. And we can't do that for customers.
Not only that, but they say that the best promise wins the sale.
Yes.
Not the best product that wins the sale.
Yeah, as
the product
long
has
as
to live up to it.
The promise is real.
But the promise wins, right?
Yeah. Because if it's not real, when the customer gets the product and they put on some janky, crappy little silicone ring, they're like, I did that. I lost this one, and I bought those 3 for $5 on Amazon, and I tried them on. I'm like, man, these are not groove ring. I'm not trying to promote your customer, but they're not the same. The quality of them, the flexibility of them, they're cheap. You could tell.
But it's hard to tell that from an Amazon.
No, you don't know about from a photo.
Right. Silicone is silicone, right?
One thing that Apple did, I thought that was really interesting, is they, when they started selling their products, this started happening maybe about, 7 or 8, 10 years ago. They started bringing in these really unique value propositions where they show you like their latest computer, and they explode it like in a drawing or a video. And then they show you how they actually, CNC the aluminum, and they actually get you into the process of why their computers are so different and high tech. Before, nobody cared what was inside the computer. I mean, they knew the RAM and the specs, but they didn't really care that they see the thing being manufactured. But for some reason, Apple made it a piece of art. And they said, this is the extent of the care and passion that we take, and they start showing you how the thing is made. And next thing you know, all of us are watching these technical manufacturing videos that are cool and hip, right? And they start to explode that, and now you see that everywhere. Like, you get into the product, you understand the value props of just even the manufacturing, or why Groove Ring has these little rings that help, so your finger doesn't sweat. And there's just a lot more like value propositions that are put into products nowadays. And
what Apple does really well, and now other people do it, but like, they always did a great job of making people understand why they should care about those things.
Correct.
Right? Like, before that, it's like, this guy's, other competitors are like, this much RAM, this CPU, this, and this. And unless you're a tech nerd, you don't know what that means. Apple translates it into, why do I care?
Exactly.
Right. And that's important.
Well, it's the difference between something that's functional and something that touches the human heart,
Correct.
Right? And that's the difference. And I think again, we talk about these giants, but Elon Musk, if you've ever heard interviews of him, he's this rare human being who can explain to you the mysteries of, electricity and rocket science, and like he's brilliant. But he also has this ability to say, someone will say, well, why did you put that in the car? And he's like, because it's really cool.
Exactly.
It's like normal.
And then he's like, I'm going to figure out how to make the new, the Roadster like hover off the ground a few inches. Why? Because it's really cool. That's the difference, right? It's like build an amazing machine, go to Mars, but like, hey, let's put my car inside one of these rockets and let's film it. Why? Because it's really cool. He's appealing to the human emotion in that, and that's why people are just fascinated by this.
I think a lot of it isn't that he's just appealing to outward emotion. He's literally appealing to his kid-like spirit inside of him, right? His emotional side. That's just fun for him. And he's got a lot of money. He can do whatever he wants.
The flamethrower, remember that?
Yeah. So he allows himself to be a child and tap into that emotion, I think, that a lot of entrepreneurs don't, because they feel like it's, the bean counters are going to have a heyday with their fun. And, and that's why he connects with the rest of us, because there's like, you guys see the interview with Jay Leno and him driving that Tesla truck. And that's what he said. Jay Leno said, hey, why bulletproof glass? And Elon Musk says, because it's badass. And who doesn't want a bulletproof glass truck? I mean, I do.
Yeah.
I have no need for it, but I like it. And I want it.
Versus, and no disparity on other brands, but versus Chevy or others going, oh, this gets X amount of miles per gallon or miles per, charge, or, this last got a good, rating. But do you have bulletproof glass and can hover off the ground?
That's amazing.
They're making that glass as thin as possible, counting every penny.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big difference.
Getting into the tactical side, there's 4 questions that we ask at 5x5 agencies that I've found is really helpful. I've done several of these the last couple of months. Getting into helping a client to unpack their brand. And the 4 questions are, what's right about what you've done so far? What's right about maybe some marketing things you've tried, about your brand currently, about your product? What's right? What's wrong? What's missing? And what's confused? And if you can get them to parse those 4 things, it really helps to and you start documenting, and all of a sudden you start getting people opening up and saying, oh, I know where we need to be and where we not are, but like, what's really good? What's right about what you're doing? Okay, now let's say what's wrong, but now let's the nuance of what's missing. And then the nuance of what's confusing, what's confused about what you're doing to your customers. I think those are really 4 helpful questions that if you can spend an hour talking or whatever, how long it may take to make 4 columns and just start bam, bam, bam. Oh, I never thought about that. Does that go in the confused column or does it go in the missing column? Does it go in, the good, what's right? And I think once you can, those are 4 things that we use that are really, really practical things, in addition to some story brand things.
When you're doing these workshops, I found that you have to ask the questions. There's already a built-in pent-up excitement or frustration for the customer to start talking. The goal is when you do these things is ask the questions that you get your customer really talking and excited or frustrated. Like if you say what's missing or whatever, and you have a couple C-levels, you'll get sometimes you get arguments between coworkers and things because they're frustrated about things that they can't solve. And so those things come out, and let them come out. Let them come out. In fact, the more frustrated they are, the more they're going to give you what's missing or what's confusing or what they don't like about something or a problem they can't solve. They typically don't come with answers. Typically what they do is they come with problems. Right. And if you can get the problems out and really identify those things in a way that's constructive, you can learn a lot about your customer and maybe start bringing them solutions. One thing also too, another thing is during any workshop that you do with clients, the more that you can answer questions that they have there, and the more that they know, wait a second here, you're almost understanding our business more than I understand it. Right? Little epiphanies that you're bringing to the table, they start to have trust in you.
Yeah.
And so if these meetings are new for a new client, it's a good place to earn their trust and to say, you know what, I care so much about you, your business, and your products that I'm going to do a deep dive and ask you a lot of questions about yourself. You know, if you go out to lunch with somebody, right, you've probably done this before, and somebody talks all about themselves, they actually feel good. Like, you know, it could be a one-way conversation, but they're like, you know, you might not feel great if you're just a listener because like, man, I never got a word in. But if you allow someone just to talk, it's amazing what they can.
It's what therapy is.
I heard years ago there was like a national survey. I don't know, it was Gartner or something like that surveyed people on how good of a conversationalist they were. It turned out that if you let the other person talk something like over 80% of the time, they would rate you as a great conversationalist, which is so funny in some ways because obviously the less you talk, the higher your rating would be.
Yeah.
But that's so true.
What I also suggest for any type of like initial customer kind of workshop is to get a bunch of those big stickies, get a whiteboard and get a bunch of those big stickies and have people write down things and stick them on the whatever your format is and take photos of them so that you can document it later and you can actually take it from the board. Allow people to be interactive, allow them to write, allow them to themselves to go up on the board and write stuff because the more interactive they are, the more engaged in the process. And then I would always suggest having somebody who's just taking notes the whole time. So someone who's a fast typer or can is a good note taker to sit there and just take notes and have with your format. So they already know, the writer already knows, or the person taking the notes already knows the format really well. They're just kind of quickly filling the blanks so that when you're done with these things, a lot of times so much information comes out, it's not going to be helpful. If you can't go back to it.
And the world of Zoom these days,
record it.
The way that we do it is we have the note taker, share their screen. And as we're going through the immersion process, they're actually typing these things in. So everyone on the Zoom can actually see real time people's participation. It's equal to a virtual whiteboard, right?
Yeah.
And what I've found, this trust thing is important because at the end of it, or follow up days later, you can look through all those notes and you can just probably, we've been doing this long enough. We can, in a matter of minutes, we can pull out exactly, okay, here's their problem. Here's the solution. Here's where we need to take their messaging, their ads, whatever it may be. And when you go back to the client and you start talking that language and you start saying those things back to them, all of a sudden they're like, you totally get us. You totally understand. You're part of my culture now. You go beyond just a hired help to one of our tribe because you've done that hard work of really getting that stuff out of them. And that's really the goal of what clients pay us for, right? Is for us to be transparently representing them online or in the real world, whatever it may be. And I think you're right. That's a great point of building trust and long-term relationships with clients.
How have you guys transitioned doing this virtually? I know you mentioned that you do it on Zoom in that way, but Brad, your method with the Post-its, and because you're saying it's best to get motion out of people.
Yeah, I love being in a room with people. It's
so
harder.
How have you done? How have you accomplished that same thing?
We've done it through Zoom, and it's definitely a lot more challenging. The beauty is that
it's hard to keep everyone engaged, right?
Yes.
And it starts to get. Everyone's just standing still.
You do it in bite sizes. If you have to only do it for an hour a day
take a break
for 4 days, or do it over a 2-week period for an hour a day, take a break because it can be exhausting.
Yeah. We do 2-hour sprints on Zoom.
Yeah, don't do too long.
But I wouldn't do any more than that. It's a maximum.
I find that if you find that your clients are fidgety or their phone's constantly ringing, they're dealing with business at the same time, like, hold on a second here, I got to deal with this. Their mindset is someplace else. You almost have to say, listen, okay, we're done for today.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It's just, we're done for the day. We're going to reconvene. And they're typically like, yeah, I get it. We're done. We're exhausted. Like, it's an exhausting process.
We'll take 5-minute breaks sometimes.
Yeah, take a lot of breaks.
Okay.
Yeah, let people, do a phone call or two every 45 minutes where they can just walk away and do something they need to answer an email or something. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious just in the last minute or two. Obviously, everything here should be applied to your actual agency too.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of what we sell are commodities, just like any business. And then what are the things that are not commodities? What are the unique things? And how do you become the only one? And how do you dig into your why and your story and actually become I believe for an agency, it's easier to follow that story brand because you are naturally the guide. Yeah. For a silicon ring, it's a little harder to figure out how you're the guide for the story that this person's on. But for an agency, you are. So in some ways, it's even easier. Yet, I think a lot of agencies don't dig into these kind of things for themselves. Mm-hmm. And
we've done this for ourselves.
Don't do that.
We have a whole deck and stuff too that we produced, and it's good. It's definitely. I think the challenge is that you have to make sure that everybody that works with you is on board with it, and they're also understanding, and you got to keep your eye on it. It's like otherwise you can lose focus on it and going back to it. And it can change. It doesn't have to change every year a little bit. I mean, I think maybe your why doesn't change, but I think the way you execute that and you communicate that can change for sure. Because I think it's easier to pivot your business when you do have that why and you understand. It doesn't. Just because you pivot doesn't mean that you go against your why. It's actually in line with your why, and you find businesses that are passionate about a change in this world, that it's bigger than the product they're selling, and there's clients that don't. They come in and they go, I'm just here about the money and I just want to sell product.
Yeah.
And I want to build a great company financially, and I don't think people go to work because their boss wants to make money. I mean, I don't think that's the passion why people go to work.
That goal is not a bad goal.
No,
I think it gets frowned upon these days. But like businesses are made to make money, right?
Yeah, you have to make money.
The truth is that for most of those people, I would say 95% of those people that would say that they have something that's driving them. They just don't know what it is.
Sure.
And so you have to pull it out because I find it rare. Like for someone that doesn't have any reason behind it and it's just cutthroat money making. I mean, that is a rare. There are a lot less of those people and businesses than I think a lot of people think.
People ask me what I do for a living. I say I make money for clients.
Exactly.
That's honestly what I do.
That's
Are
great.
you a financial advisor? No.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I am. And my hope is that there's more
Enter
than
disclaimer.
that. My hope is that there's more than that. Really, what my goal is in my business is to make sure that customers are served by my clients. That somehow their life is better by my clients. And if I can do that and make money, that's the magic sauce.
It's good.
Absolutely.
Great discussion, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, like and recommend and review and share this podcast and check us out on YouTube.
Yeah, awesome. If you have any other ideas that we missed and better ways to do what we're talking about, send them in.
Got more guests coming up.
Cool. All right.
All right. Talk to you guys
Thanks,
later.
guys.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.